Hello, everybody. Welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I'm Jerrica.
And I'm Lia, and welcome to Summertime
Specials.
So we're doing summer specials this for the next 3 weeks. Starting today with To All the Books I've Loved Before.
And to all those
I hate you so much. So much. I'm going to rant about you forever. We are already disagreeing. Before we started recording, we are already disagreeing. And let's start out with our disagreement here because we are disagreeing about the classics.
The classics, because I have a couple classics in here. Lia, she has a memory issue. So.
I do. I have such a memory issue. I literally went through my Goodreads and I was like, I read this? What is this? I've never seen this book before in my life. I have no idea what this is. It's been a mission to try to remember anything that was older really than 2-3 years.
So I'm surprised that you have any memory of any classics, because we have a list of to the books that we've loved, all of the books that we really love, heart love, and
yes.
Then we have a list of books that we didn't love, and whether it's a popular hate or not, we are going to share it with you today. And I asked her, do you have any classics in there? Do you remember any classics?
Well, I read all of the Jane Austen, and Emily Brontë. I went through a serious classic phase there in my 20s, and I read through all of them. And there's only 2 books that I read more than once out of all of these, and that was Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights.
Good.
And I did love those 2 books.
Gosh, I can't even sit and listen to a synopsis of the books. That's how boring. I know that makes me so unpopular, but like Jane Austen, yawn. Like nothing happens. The characters are all awful, boring, womp womp people. Nothing even special about the looks of them.
I don't know, because I did a lot of the reading. But maybe you would prefer it then, because I read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Have you read that one?
No, but I'd much rather there be zombies in Pride and Prejudice, because when I had to read Pride and Prejudice for my literary class in university, I was like, good God, why are we reading this?
Well, then you should read Pride, Prejudice, and
Zombies. And then it's made into movies and other movies and other movies.
The movies. I like them.
You like all the movies? I watched this really silly movie that was like a Jane Eyre holiday retreat. Have you heard of this movie?
No.
I have no idea what it's called, but I remember it being like, or no, not a Jane Eyre, a Jane Austen.
Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
And Zombies. Amazing. Send it to me. I'll read it.
There's also
a Jane Austen retreat, sort of like a theme park where people get to go and pretend to be in Jane Austen novels, and I couldn't think of a more boring holiday to ever be on.
Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters.
Oh, Sea Monsters. That sounds awesome.
I've not read
These
this one.
are right up my alley. As soon as you throw a sea monster in there, sold. The regular Sense and Sensibility, I'm going to bed.
Fair enough. Okay, so leaving the classics and moving forwards, we have another couple of classics on the list that we do like, but I think we're going to talk about some of them in our next episode, which is about books made into TV shows or movies. And a couple of the books on my love list is also on this, something that I'm going to be discussing on the next episode, which are particularly Chaos Walking by Patrick Ness and A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, which you should all know as Game of Thrones. Yes, we will talk about those next episode, but know that they are in my favorites list here.
So share with me your very, very, very favoritist.
Well, when we first decided to do this episode, I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and make a list and I'm going to think of all the books I love. And immediately I wrote down The Folk of the Air, which is the Holly Black, Cruel Prince, Wicked King, and Queen of Nothing. And then it's also the short one, How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. And there's another short about the sisters as well. I love all of these. And I love Holly Black. I do. I love Holly Black.
That's awesome.
I love The Darkest Part of the Forest. I love The Coldest Girl in Cold Town. I love Holly Black. I love the Curseworker books. I love Holly Black. The only ones I don't really like are the modern fairy tales one. They're not my favorite. But apart from that, anything Holly Black I will read. And it's across the board. Like, I force my children to read Holly Black because she's written some like tween books and stuff. Cool. And I made them all read them. They were like, Mom, this is boring, I don't care. And I was like, shh, we're listening to the wonderful story, now be quiet. So anything Holly Black, really. I will read anything Holly Black. She's at the absolute top of my list. So what about yours?
Sarah J Maas is definitely my favorite author. The Court of Thorns and Roses series. There's a bunch of, or 4 of those actually. And then there's another one, Silver Flames, we read for our podcast this year. That goes for Feyre's sister Nesta, and then there's going to be more. So I'm just so excited that this series is continuing, and it's solid writing, solid creativity, like solid relationship building. And what we talk about quite often is how much trauma happens to the characters and how we dislike when they push that trauma away, especially when it comes to sexual abuse.
Yep.
And there is abuse in these court books, and she does not make these characters just throw it over the shoulder and, oh, well, I'm in love with this guy now, everything is sunshine and rainbows. She really goes deep into the mental health repercussions of abuse, and really, really does a good job at that. So even though it's a fantasy series, it's pretty real.
And she didn't make my top at all.
I know.
I'm not a super big fan of Sarah J Maas. I prefer Holly Black. What can I say?
I mean, but I wouldn't compare the two. They don't even write
but they do
technically.
write about elves and fairies, and it's the courts, and it's all of that. There's basically they're taking it. But what Holly does is she has, what I love about Holly Black is that she is like the queen of elves and fairies, if you want to. Like, she has all of the rules and she follows them all, and she's very consistent in applying how the rules work in her world. So they're always going to be following the rules. Whereas I find that Sarah J Maas, she took the fairy or elf world, and then she adjusted the rules to suit her needs. And I mean, this is kind of like if we go into...
but she made her own world.
She did, for sure. But she's not as consistent.
And she stuck to the rules inside of her world.
Not quite as consistently as Holly Black does. And it's all the wings and the way your bone structure needs. I don't know. Like, there's lots of things. I prefer my Holly Black and her. She's the queen of fairies.
For me, Holly Black the characters are a little younger. Yeah. So it reads also a little teenier, which is why I prefer
But
Sarah
she also
J Maas.
writes for very much younger. She wrote the Spiderwick Chronicles and stuff, and that's where I made my children read. But it's a little bit like if you take Twilight, where the rules of the vampires that they freaking sparkle in the sun. Like, I find that Sarah J Maas's rules that she does for her fairies are equivalent to the sparkling vampires of Twilight. Like, she does outlandish things that are not part of lore in a way. Like,
but do you think that it always needs to follow everyone else's rules?
I am more of a purist, I guess. And I think it comes down to my personal preference of, I don't think that everyone should always follow. I think you need to set rules and you need to stick to them. This, I think, it should be consistently across the board, because if you make rules for your world, you need to stick to them.
In your own world. But I think that creativity would be lost if they can't expand it in some sort of way. Of course,
people can make their own world. And I mean, it's great when people build their own world. And I mean, Sarah J Maas, she has very much built the world.
Yeah.
It's a massive world at this point.
Yeah.
Very detailed. So it's not that. It's just, for me, I prefer my fairies to be unable to lie and to be,
you like the Holly Black
somewhat untrustworthy, like, at all times. But, like, they cannot lie, but they really lie all the time, because they lie by omitting the truth and by, speaking in riddles, and you really can never be sure. And I like this better than
the trickiness of
the
fairies.
trickiness, because it's how it's just my belief. Like, it's more the way I want fairies to be in this world, if there are fairies in this world.
The The next two I have on my list are ones that we agree on. Dum dum dum.
Magic.
And that is our most recent favorite book. I don't know if it's your most recent, if you read something you like more after this, but The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue has been a real top shiner for my entire year.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that I have liked any book I've read this year more than that.
No, so far, absolute favorite book of this year, I would say. By far. It's so good.
It's going to stick in my mind for a really long time.
I actually just listened to a Victoria Schwab book I just finished today, actually. It was the This Savage Song. It has a second book as well, but I literally have 48 seconds left, so I think I'm done.
Oh no!
I think I'm done. I marked it as done.
Okay.
But this is what I've been listening to because this book really opened my eyes to this author, and I will probably read most of her stuff because I found her to be such a good writer.
She goes by both V.E. Schwab and Victoria Schwab.
And V.E. is her more adult books, whereas Victoria are her more youth-oriented book, her more YA books.
If you haven't read anything by her, do it now.
Quickly. Keep listening. Then go read.
And then the next one I have that we agree on is the Bargainer series by Laura Thalassa. There was...
didn't actually make my top here.
No?
No.
But it's one of these books that started our podcast, started our love of reading together, started our friendship. I'm never going to not have this series on the top. It's so hilarious. Sure.
It has lots of meaning to us. But would I say it's a good book? Like this, I think this is where I went wrong. And it's like this. I started reading this, one of the books that I got for my birthday. I started reading it yesterday, Milk Fed, by Melissa Broder. And she's an assistant, the main character in that. And I work as an assistant as well. So she was taking minutes at a meeting. And her minutes that she was taking, I was just laughing out loud because I sat through a meeting yesterday and I zoned out for a little bit and then I came back and they were all like talking very intently about something and I'm like, oh shit, I missed something here. Hopefully someone says a keyword soon that I can type down in my notes so I know what we're talking about. It was on that level and then someone said a keyword. I'm like, okay, this is what we're talking about. Yeah. Save. But like the way she was taking notes, and so I kept reading bits from this book for him and he's like, oh, you must really like this book because you have your good book voice. And I'm like, I have a good book voice? And he's like, yeah, whenever you read from, because we read another book this week too that I wasn't too impressed with. And every time I read excerpts from that book, apparently I used my, God, this is so bad voice.
It goes a little bit faster, a little higher pitched.
Just more like, this is so stupid. And I'm going to show that it's stupid by the way I say these words out loud kind of thing. And for... as much as I love our conversations about The Bargainer is what I really liked more than the actual books. Yeah, okay. Like the way we talked about it. Because it was really kind of stupid. I mean, they were. I mean, there was continuity issues. Yeah. There was way too much missionary. There was all of these things.
Yeah, but that was the best. That made it all of course, amazing.
But because we had so much fun talking about it, I would say it's in my favorites, but not... because the book was actually good. So next on my list, I have the Queen's Thief series by Megan Whalen Turner.
Yeah.
Have you read those?
No, but I have it on my list and I haven't made it a priority because I feel like it's going to be one of those that I'm going to get sucked into.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you're going to like them.
No.
I mean, I really like them, but they're very much like, there's many books in this series as well.
Yeah.
And... he's so freaking clever, that fucking thief. Like, he gets away with so much shit.
I love thieves.
And he just has all of these, like... But it's very... I don't know, it's more of a feeling, these books. Like, when I read them, and I read them twice, I'm all like, I love these books because I love the words and stuff, but there's nothing particularly explicit or anything like that in them. They just... I don't know. Anyways, I love them. They're The Thief, The Queen of Atolia... The King of Atolia, Conspiracy of Kings, Thickest Thieves, and Return of the Thief are in the series. So there's lots of them now. But I would say you only need to read the first 3, really.
Okay.
Because that's the main story. And then everything else is just after. And then I had The Raven Cycle, which is also something we both read.
Yeah.
By
I didn't have it on my top 10, but
but
It's really good.
I really love her writing as well. And I mean, we went on to read her Shiver series, which I didn't like as much as the Raven Cycle. I prefer the Raven Cycle. And I'm also started the spin-off of the Raven Cycle, which follows Ronan.
That's right.
And I read the first one, Call Down the Hawk, and the second one is Mr. Impossible. It just came out like a month or so ago. Nice. I haven't read it yet. It's on my to-read list. But there's going to be a third one in a year, so I kind of didn't want to rush into it because then I'm going to be like, and then it will be another Holly Black situation where I'm going to have to cry and be sad because it's a full year until the next one. You know, it's hard. So hard.
And staying on the theme of fantasy, of course, I have on my top list the Bad Fake Chronicles by Amelia Hutchins. I read everything by Amelia Hutchins, and they are all would be on your bad list.
Fair enough. But she's your must-read author. Because I was thinking about this. Yeah? Do you have any automatic purchase authors? And I guess Amelia Hutchins is one
She
of
is
yours.
for sure one of mine.
And Holly Black would be mine.
And
it
doesn't even matter what she has written. Like, it could be called something like completely ridiculous, and I would be like, done?
Right.
I will be reading this
other,
tonight.
I guess, not Sarah J Maas.
No, because I haven't read her Assassin series.
Yeah.
No.
Do you have any others?
Recently, I started to read Katie Robert books, and she wrote Neon Gods, which is that Hades Persephone, and I didn't think twice, and I had to buy it because, of course, it's not on Scribd or Storyteller or any of the places we read or listen to that we subscribe to, but I bought it without even second guessing, and then after that, I was like, this is so... Her writing is so my reading. So I will continue to read many of her books. The thing is, she has a lot of books. Like, she's a seasoned author.
Busy for a while.
I will. She also writes hilarious tweets. So I just am a fan.
Fair enough. I have one other automatic purchase author, and that's Katie Cotugno. And she's not a very, if I go by her Goodreads review, she's not a lot of people hate her books, but I don't know, they just click with me. I love the way she writes, and there's issues in these books, there's things I wish she wouldn't do, because in pretty much all of the books that I read by her so far, there's a guy and a girl, and he will be the first person she sleeps with, and then they will be apart for whatever reason. He will sleep around, but she will stay, she won't. Even if she dates someone else, she won't sleep with them. This I find to be the pure girl aspect, which I don't like, because it's fine for men, but it's not okay for women. This pisses me off. But that's, apart from that, it's the only thing I have to complain about these books. They feel very real. It feels like the kind of thing that could happen. It's all very real people dealing with real things, and it's all shitty situations and shitty relationships from time to time, and working your way through it. I like them. They get to me. And another book that was on here that we actually read together were The Dance of Thieves.
I was going through my Goodreads, and I was like, I wonder if Leah's going to put this on her list.
Because I thought that was so good.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to kind of read because there's a trilogy that goes before these ones as well.
Huh.
Yeah, it's the ones, they're way more famous than The Dance of Thieves and The Vow of Thieves. It's the... I'm gonna have to find them now, but they're much more famous, and I'm gonna have to probably read them at some point. But her name is
The Dance of Thieves was
Mary
very creative,
yeah,
because
they're already in an established world. And
they were
it's
in
that
established
when they
world,
go see the Queen, the trilogy before is about the Queen and how she came into power and her relationship. So it's Mary E. Pearson, and I will probably have to read the Remnant Chronicles, they're called. The Kiss of Deception, and I think we have them on our to-read list.
Awesome.
Like these ones.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And those actually happened before The Dance of Thieves. But, people are negative here on Goodreads. But we don't like Emily May.
No, this girl reads. I don't even know if we read more than her. I think she might even read more than us. It seems that every book we go to look up to see if it was something we want to read for our podcast, there is this Goodreads reviewer called Emily May, who has already read it and almost all the time gives it 1-star review.
Fair enough. But she always, I pretty much always disagree with her though, because I read The Cruel Beauty, which she said was like the best Beauty and the Beast story, and I was like, this is not a Beauty and the Beast story.
And she thought Hunted was the second Beauty and the Beast, second best Beauty and the Beast,
but
and I didn't like Hunted. It was not.
It was good. So what else do you have on your list?
I actually went like throwback to university, where I used to read a lot then, and before in high school I read a lot also, and in university or the beginning of like my working career, I read this book. It's very short. It's called All My Friends Are Superheroes by Andrew Kaufman. Have you heard of it?
No.
I don't know if it's a super famous book or anything like that, but it is so, like, I have a smile on my face thinking about it because it's so creative. It's short, it's easy, it's clever, it's deep without being like, woe is me. And I
Is it just about a regular person with superhero
It's about
friend?
all regular people, and they all have superhero quality, not superhero qualities. They're not superheroes at all. But he calls them superhero names based on their like personality trait.
Okay.
So one of his friends is like the couch surfer, because the friend just sleeps over at all of the friends' houses all the time.
Fair enough.
And so the couch surfer has like a big role in the story, as if he's going to save the relationship between these two other people. But so he doesn't call them by their actual names. Everyone is known by their superhero personality trait. And so me and my friends that lived together in college, we decided like what our superhero names would all be and things like that. And it's kind of funny to think that we could all have, like, based on who we are, what would be your superhero trait? What's yours?
Continuity. No.
The continuity queen. That's it.
Continuity queen. We got it. It's happened. I had Patrick Ness and Chaos Walking is one of my absolute favorite trilogy. And I will talk about it this next episode. But Patrick Ness also has another book called The Rest of Us Just Lives Here, which is one of my favorite books that I recommend to everyone. Yeah. Which is basically about a group of friends that live in the town where the aliens come and attack. So in the beginning of every chapter is like, in this chapter is where the aliens attack the high school and they burn it down and blah, blah, blah. And then you just cut to these people that are just randos in this town and like their life. And they're like, well, I guess we can't go to school. I heard it burned down. And it's like their story. And it's like every other person in these affected cities just trying to live their own life when they're not the chosen ones. And they all say that all the indie kids are called Finn. It's really funny because they are all called Finn. It's true. So yeah, that was hilarious. That one. So I think it's actually on Storytel if you want to listen to it. It's not very long.
Oh, cool. I have on my list Steampunk Classic. When I took literary fiction as a college, I guess, side degree, or undergrad, we had to read Slaughterhouse 5 by Vonnegut Jr. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
It is classic steampunk time travel. So very cool, and it changed how I saw stories and true creativity from then on. After I read that book, even though it was something we were forced to read from school, I was like, wow, like really the creativity is endless in how you can write.
That's so cool.
It's so cool. That's Slaughterhouse 5 by Vonnegut Jr. And it's also not a long book. I think I went through this phase of not wanting to read super long books because I had so much stuff in my brain during university also. But those two were my favorite from university. But then I have a super, 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 super oldie, Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. Like, I actually love the story of Oedipus Rex, and I reference the Oedipus complex all the time.
This was a little off. Just out of nowhere.
I know.
Sophocles. Like, all right.
Yeah. I can go old school too.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, you're getting close to the Greek gods here, you know. So I guess you're going like it's a little bit on theme, I guess.
But for something that is so old, so crazy creative, that has lasted so long and still in our schools and still stories that we tell, and then this story has then, of course, been adapted and changed in books and in movies and TV shows and stuff throughout the years. And for how old the story is, like, there's no way this couldn't be just an absolute wonder.
Yeah.
And then I went all the way back to being ridiculous. And one of my favorite books that was the very first comedian written book that I've ever read. Have you ever read books by comedians?
Well, the one I'm reading, yes, I think so. The one I'm reading now, she's an assistant, but she's also a comedian. I don't know if the author is a comedian, but
okay.
I just kind of,
like, have you read
possibly.
the Tina Fey book or?
No.
Okay.
No.
This is Chelsea Handler. Do you know her?
Yep.
She is a very famous comedian, a very famous single comedian who chooses to not be a mother and chooses to be single and has quite a colorful sexual history and probably current life as well. I think she's awesome. And her very first book was called Lies That Chelsea Handler Told Me. Or maybe this is the second one. It doesn't matter. This was the first book of hers that I read. And I laughed and I peed and I cried and I died, and it is so funny. Oh yeah, My Horizontal Life is her first book. And she talks about all her exploits and all like these crazy things that she's done and a little bit about her life also. And it is so funny, but there's a lot of haters on Goodreads. So,
yeah, I'm not a big fan of Chelsea Handler. She's not someone I enjoy listening to.
She can be crude sometimes, which I think goes a little bit overboard. But we're talking like 15 years ago.
No. I mean, I wouldn't discount a book or anything, but she's not out of all the comedians. She's not one of my favorites.
Sure. Very
I only have 2 books left on my list here of my favorite books. I have Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell.
I don't know.
And this was a book that kept coming up as like, you should read this book, you should read this book. And I was like, it looks boring. And then I finally was like, okay, fine. Everyone says I should read it. So I read, and it is fantastic. It's so good. So yes, everyone should read Eleanor and Park. Mm-hmm. For sure. And then I also have on my list When We Collided by Emery Lord, which deals very nicely with someone being bipolar, and like it's a very nice romantic story in a way with someone struggling with mental health issues. It's very well written. I really enjoyed it.
I have Six of Crows on here. I thought your top 10 would also include Six of Crows because you love Leigh Bardugo. But
Six of Crows goes in, we've already talked about, I think this is why I didn't put it on here, because we already talked about it being made into TV shows, and we already talked so much extensively about how I love these books. I do love these books.
So everyone knows.
I don't like Shadow and Bones, that series particularly, but I love Six of Crows, for sure. So you have Six of Crows?
I have Six of Crows on here because I love heist books, and this just took it to a totally different level. It's totally different level. Yeah. And it's fantasy, it's creative, which I keep saying that word creative because I am so obsessed with people that have new ideas. Mm-hmm. I think that I lack interest in reading really basic everyday life books. Mm-hmm. And I lack interest a little bit also in murder mystery books because I think they're a little bit too close to boring sometimes. If it's a thriller, then of course not. But this is fantasy and heist book and just cleverness to the max.
For sure, and it's got like no cliches. I think that's it too, because when you're talking about the boringness of some of these books, I think it's because when you write like murder mysteries and stuff, it's so easy to fall into tropes and cliches and to make it like an actual interesting stories without making it too convenient for the person to find the clues and to figure things out. You know, like if it's easy to figure it out, then someone else would have done it earlier, kind of thing. Like, I think that's. Did you have another book?
I just have the last one, but I actually don't know who the author is or exactly what the title is called. But when I was a kid, my mom, she reads a lot of books, which inspired me to be a reader. And I hope one of my kids ends up being a reader too.
My son's a reader. My daughter has dyslexia, so she struggles with reading.
She can listen audiobook.
She can. And I have given her, on Storytel, you can get a kid's account included. So I did that. Nice.
Nice. But this book I read, I was probably somewhere around your daughter's age, 11-ish, 12-ish or something like that. And it had the title Something Like a Daydreamer, and the book was about this little girl who lived through her dreams, because in her everyday life was like this monotonous, also bullying, and parents who were alcoholics and fighting all the time. And she sort of, the author like made that be the thing that was the nightmare. The real life was the nightmare, and then she lived through her dreams. So in her dreams, she went to these fantasy lands, and she could float on clouds. And it's for a child, this book, or a tween or teen or whatever. And it was the first book that I didn't have this life. I didn't have alcoholic parents or a bad childhood or anything like that. But it was the first book that made me think of that dreams could become reality should you like overcome the obstacles that you go through. And I really loved it. I'm sorry, I don't know who the author is, but if any of you out there know who this author of Daydreamer is, let us know.
Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else. Really, just
I'd love to get it for my kids.
You. Yeah, you know, on MySpace. Yeah. Please tell us on MySpace. No. Don't go on MySpace. I think my MySpace is still back up, so don't go look because I found it by accident when I Googled myself before. Okay, anyways, but we haven't only read books that we love. No. We have absolutely read some travesties of books, like so bad.
Do you know what I was thinking about when I was going through this bad list? Was I haven't read it, but just the title "Man Hands" of that book so that you read.
It didn't make this list, honestly, but it was
made me think of. I'm writing all this list, but I have not read "Man Hands."
No, don't read "Man Hands." It's not worth it. The top of the books we hate, I think we share this one.
Yeah.
It's the After series by Anna Todd. And we have talked plenty about the After series by Anna Todd.
We have to not talk about this book anymore. We have to
stop ourselves from talking about it. So we're putting it in a last time here, as in, we hate this book. Hate it. Don't read it. Not worth it.
Oh, it takes so much of your time and
100
energy.
hours of your life will be lost.
Drowning brain cells
to this
dead.
never-ending conflict of fighting and making up and fighting and making up and so much crying.
Oh my God.
Not worth it. Don't do it. All right. So after that, I have another book that was actually given to me by my husband.
Oh no, Jay!
Because it's being made into a TV show or movies or something like that, and it's called Lilith's Brood by Octavia E. Butler.
Okay.
And I hate this book. I truly do. It's very long, and I got like the omnibus version, so it's like 3 books in one, so I had to read it, and it was a book, which made me annoyed. And it's about this alien race that comes and they take humans and they need to heal the planet, so they make all the humans sterile, and then they basically need to find 2 humans and they make them have sex through them so that they can then have babies. And these aliens are like, we're not talking hot aliens, we're not talking even E.T. We're talking, they look like a pile of snot with tentacles.
Oh yes, you told me
aliens.
About this before.
Yeah, they're grey and they have tentacles all over their bodies, which can then
sexy
look like eyes, like shaded eyes and stuff. And some of them have their tentacles, the long ones, in strategic places, so it actually looks like hair and stuff. But some of them, they just randomly grow out of their bodies. Disgusting. These books are disgusting. Disgusting. Don't read them.
Wow.
Okay.
Harsh critique here.
Yeah, that's on your list. I need to breathe.
I have a book that we had to read for our book club. And,
thanks, Anita.
Thanks, Anita. And actually, it's called Deadwood Shocking by Kim Harrison. And I want to give it a tiny bit of credit that this book was written 20 years ago, when the story might have been more interesting because it was a little bit newer. to the scene of having paranormals all living together in the same world. It is also, she's like a PI, private investigator.
Oh, yeah, so cool. But that's in the Bargainer series too. She's a PI.
That's so bad. Like, what a bad job. Anyways. And then in the book, nothing happens. Nothing happens. She fails at every task she tries to accomplish.
She gets captured a bunch.
She gets captured. She's a very bad PI, and it's cheesy and it's not witty.
And then we should put a disclaimer here that we did not read the continuation of this series, so maybe something did happen in book 3 or 4 or 5. I don't know. I think there's lots of books in this series.
I was like laughed through reading it. It was so ridiculous. And then next on my list I have, I should say, I went through a really big phase of James Patterson. Have you ever read anything by him?
I don't know. You know me, my memory was Swiss cheese. I don't know anything.
Okay, but James Patterson is this author who has like probably 500 books. And they're like all a little bit similar. They're all murder mysteries with a little bit of romance involved. And there's always a twist. You know I love twists. And he's a very good author, I should say that also. By very good, I mean in one of those that you could write so many books and have them be so popular. You have to be a good author. But they're not going to ever like win awards good because they're all also a little bit cheesy.
Fair enough.
That being said, 4th of July by James Patterson was one of the worst of all of the books that I have read of his. They're all easy reads, but this one was the crash and burn.
Fair enough. Next on my list, I have Real by Katie Evans. And my main problem with this book is not necessarily this book, it's the genre, it's the type of books that this is. Because this book is about a super aggressive man who plays in underground fights, and during one fight he sees her, he's never seen her before, she's in the audience, and he goes up to her and he goes, "You're mine," and she's all like, "Ha, so hot," and then he's so abusive and like he's so out of control mentally. I think he's struggling with mental health issues, I think they say so, but he doesn't want to medicate. So when he gets aggressive enough, his team literally drugs him with horse tranquilizers to knock him out so he cannot hurt people. And she's all like, "Oh, he loves me so. He just tried to beat me to a pulp." Like, it is very much abuse and stalkerish behavior disguised as romance, as being sexy. And anytime you come up on these books, say it happens in Twilight when he freaking watches her sleep, it's all of this. Just imagine, if this guy was ugly, would this be hot? And if the answer is no, then this behavior is fucking unacceptable. And
just because he's hot doesn't mean it's okay.
Don't fall for it, because it is not right and it's unhealthy and it's terrible. So this book is just one representative out of a whole pile of books that are very much on this theme. My next one is Evernight series by Claudia Gray, which I have issues with because it came fully on the wave of Twilight.
Okay.
So it was another vampire trilogy kind of series. So bad. Don't read it. Okay. Not worth it. If Twilight was bad, this was horrible. That's it.
But I have one last one, and it goes a little bit on the theme of what you were talking about of abuse marked as romance or seen as romance. And if you're hot, then you get away with it. But if you're not hot, you don't get away with it. And this all sums up Tucker Max's books. Do you know him? There's 4, I want to say, of his books. I read only the first one, written, I think, in 2004 or 2006, somewhere around there, before #MeToo, because it would not have been popular after that. The title of the book, of his first book, is called I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. And he is just like a misogynist. And this is all based on his actual, like, real life escapades. Of course, it is made into, like, larger exaggerations of everything he's done with women and how poorly he's treated them and how many women he's had sex with and in all different situations and what he can get away with and bosses' daughters and wives at the same time kind of thing. And I'm so cool because I do all of these really horrible man-hoary stuff. And the book was actually so popular. It was all over the media saying that this is like the new, what was that comedian's name? Andrew Dice Clay. And that kind of behavior and that kind of talk, those kind of words, it's not great. It's not acceptable.
Really not.
And especially now.
I mean, it's never been acceptable.
But especially now where our eyes are open to it, and we can all say, like, no, this guy can go fuck himself.
Yeah, for sure. Because, I mean, when Me Too came out, I turned to my husband and I said, why is this news? Like, I have never met a woman who has not been subjected to any of this shit. Like, I don't know anyone who hasn't been. Yeah. And he was like, really? It's like that bad? I'm like, yeah.
My husband was shocked that we would get touched in nightclubs without wanting to be touched.
Groped in a pool once. Like,
who touches people at a nightclub that they don't know? And I was like, assholes. Where have you been raised?
You're not a woman, that's why you don't know. Anyways, I hope we have added to your to-read piles.
Yes.
Not too much, I hope, or I don't know, maybe just enough. We will post all the titles with the authors on our Instagram account, so you can come and look at it there, and it will also be in the episode description. So we hope you have some great summer reading this summer, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerrica and Lia and Theme music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'd rather be reading the pod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.